I'd like to welcome everyone to the 100th meeting of the 7th Council of the Municipality of South Dundas on this fine October day. We have already called the meeting to order, and we have also have done a closed session that went from 5 to 6 o'clock, and I apologize for a little bit of tardiness, but we needed to get through some important items at that time. So confirmation of agenda, are there any additions, deletion, or amendments at this time, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. So the amendment will be to move 9F from consent, the Iroquois Waterfront Committee minutes, to discussion item.
That's J right now.
And we'll do an addition of correspondence from the Historical Society of South Dundas if council wishes to look at that tonight as well.
Okay. Council have any issues with that ask? Seeing none, we'll put it on as K after the Waterfront Committee meeting discussion. Anything further?
No, sir.
Anything from any member of council this evening? With that, then, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, may I have adoptions of minutes from September 27th regular council meeting, please?
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that the minutes of the 99th regular meeting of council be adopted as circulated.
Any issues with the minutes? Seeing none, I'll hear the motion. Those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Okay, tonight we have a delegation from our friends at South Nation Conservation. It's been a long time coming, and I do somewhat apologize for that, but and to be honest, the timeliness of this is pretty significant because the new regs just came out over the weekend. So with that, I'll welcome General Manager, Secretary, Treasurer Angela Coleman to South Dundas Council.
Thank you, Mayor Byvelds, and thank you, members of council. Can you hear me okay?
Just now, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So thank you and good evening, members of council, for the opportunity to present to you this evening. I do believe all the materials we circulated last week were updated just with today's date, but we didn't have an opportunity, Mayor Byvelds, as you mentioned. We had lots of flurry of changes over the long weekend, I suppose to be expected to some extent, and some new changes that I do believe council, or at least Mayor Byvelds, you would have received as head of council. So this evening brings me to council to present a few different things and to have some discussion. I do believe I have 10 minutes to discuss and approximately 5 minutes for your questions if that meets with everyone's expectations. So on the first slide that I did provide to council, I listed, because it's been a long time and there's been a number of changes over time with different acts, legislation, and regulations that have come with respect to changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. So I listed some of those there, and I have expressed at different times really some concern and possibly at different times challenges administratively for implementing things as we get them either late in our budget process or without a lot of time to discuss matters with our member municipalities. So as the timelines show, I listed number 1, the amendments that came in 2019. Number 2, the online consultation that was hosted with stakeholders. Number 3, which was put under in December of 2020, and those were budget measures changes under Bill 229 with substantive amendments to some of the environmental protection legislation, including the Conservation Authorities Act. And then a working group for Conservation Authority regulations was formed. That working group has provided input along with AMO, members of different municipalities in Ontario, as well as BUILD and different home builders associations, as well as the agricultural community. And they have helped form the regulations that came out late last week. And I wanted to have a little bit of discussion regarding our 2022 and 2023 sort of budget expectations and different questions that you may have. The next slide just discusses, it reminds us back to Bill 229 and the governance provisions that were proclaimed earlier in this year. So I'll just go through a few of them so that you know what those are and how we've responded to those different accountability measures as well. Of course, if you have questions at any time, it's not super easy for me to see you individually, but perhaps we can do those at the end if you want to just take note of what those would be. So the first point that some municipalities had raised were municipal appointments to conservation authority boards of directors. As you know, at South Dundas, Councillor Mellon is appointed to sit on our board of directors, and he has done so for a number of years. But a council must now assure, so South Dundas in the case of a lower tier, or if it was appointment made at the county level, that 70% of appointees are elected officials. So 70% in your case, that would be making sure that the member you appointed to our board of directors is a municipal council. And in our case, we do have a few different situations in the city of Ottawa where we have citizen appointments, and one with North Dundas Council. The clarification we've received from the ministry to date is that no immediate action is required, and that if you have a representative that's a public representative, they can carry out their term. But as I mentioned on our board, we didn't have a large number of public appointments. We did have a lot of council representatives, and in many cases, we also have mayors sitting, so we have pretty good representation that way. On the next slide, under municipal appointments part 2, though, going forward, so after the next municipal election, and that would be for the 2022, late 2022 appointments of council, we would have to make sure that we have a 70% requirement met. Again, not particularly a challenge for South Dundas. However, if the City of Ottawa wished to continue, it currently has 4 members, 2 of which are public. They would have to apply to the minister for an exemption if they wanted to make more than 1 public appointment. So that's just something to note. Regarding board composition agreements, current or future agreements have to be forwarded to the minister and posted on the Conservation Authority's website. So what action we took on that is that a copy of our order in council was forwarded to the minister, as well as posted on the Conservation Authority's website. So all of that was in line with the expectations of the minister. And then moving to the chair and vice chair terms, again, our bylaws provide that a chair and a vice chair, we've consistently tried to assure that we've had a diverse representation from basically the geographic regions of the watershed. So some appointments from Leeds-Grenville, some from Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, others from Prescott-Russell, and some from the City of Ottawa. So we try to have our executive being our chair and vice chair, past chair, changing over time so that they reflect the different geographic regions of the watershed. So our administrative bylaws are currently consistent with that requirement, and we did make some language uniformity and help other CAs in the province make sure that was properly addressed in their bylaws. You may have heard through different groups that the minister, on the next slide, we discuss agricultural representative. And the minister may appoint to a CA board of directors a member of the agricultural sector. They have prescribed limiting voting rights for that position. And from our perspective, no action, has been required or was taken. It rests with the minister's discretion, and I think it rests with the local agricultural community should they think that appropriate and necessary to make sure that that type of representation is available on a CA board of directors. Other amendments that were made relate to accounting on the next slide, and basically these provisions assure that conservation authorities are using generally accepted accounting principles for local governments, and we have always been using generally accepted accounting principles for local governments, so we did not require changes under that particular heading. And so the next slide is about public documents and making sure that information is available to the public, and making sure that our agendas, our meeting minutes, and reports from our auditors are available on our website, which they currently are as well. The powers of conservation authorities basically spells out that conservation authority staff must receive landowner consent to enter land for the purposes of CA projects. And that's a practice that we've always abided by. And one thing of note, and I think it's a good thing for South Nation, is that the Conservation Authority power to expropriate land is officially repealed. So I think that that is actually for the Conservation Authority a positive thing, particularly with respect to the hazard lands in Castleman to Lemieux. So that now clearly lies within the municipality's jurisdiction and not within the Conservation Authority. So that was, I think, a positive one for our Conservation Authority. And then as we moved on to the consultation guide, which was the next step of this process, you'll recall that that was a longer document with some tables and talked about what programs might be defined as core programs and mandatory programs, as well as some timelines for completion of a transition plan and establishing municipal agreements. Now here in my presentation last week, I wrote draft regulations have not been released. So since to be updated, draft regulations have been released, and we can talk about those. Basically, the long and short of it is that they confirm the timeline for the transition plan being December 31st, 2021. So a transition plan is basically a work plan that outlines when a conservation authority will do certain tasks and by what time they'll do them. And the other part of this is the completion of an inventory of programs and services. The inventory of programs and services will discuss mandatory programs and services that can be funded by the levy, as well as other municipal services, further other programs. That would include things like our septic program. In terms of preparing for this, we did present to our board of directors for quite a few months now, just discussing some of our program presentations. By coincidence, what's left at our authority, you can see at the end of this slide. So this slide is called Snc Program Presentations. We've been doing these, as I mentioned, monthly to the board of directors in preparation for creating a transition plan and an inventory of programs and services. And those presentations have been going fairly well and are preparing the board for discussions with municipalities about the types of programs and services we view as important for the future. So you can see the list there. We had an extensive presentation on the septic program that we do for 14 member municipalities, other partnerships and municipal agreements that we have, planning services and technical reviews, the source water protection program, water control infrastructure, and the natural hazard regulations. And still to come are the conservation lands updates, as well as the stewardship and outreach programs. And I would say that, in viewing the draft regulations, and this is contrary, I would say, to what some of the agricultural stakeholders and other organizations were discussing. The watershed programs and services with respect to things like the Clean Water Program remain a bit of a discussion for municipalities as we move into the next year's budget on how those are appropriately funded. It may be that those programs are something people deem important and are able to be funded by the levy, but it may be that those have to be funded from alternative fundraising and other sources. So looking forward to that discussion. And where we stand for draft budget preparation for 2022, we did actually receive our apportionment data. So that's sort of like your impact data. It's a version of your impact data, but it has to come from the ministry for us. We did receive that in just the second week of September, and we have the apportionment figures as well. And a reminder that we're working with 16 member municipalities to try to come up with what we think is appropriate for a budget direction. And In the time of COVID and everything else, I've strived to provide you with budgets in a timely fashion and to keep members informed. And I'm glad to have the opportunity tonight to talk about the types of concerns you may have and questions you may have on anything that you feel appropriate. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Angela. It was a rather timely event on, when the email come out Thursday at 3:57. So when I got it.
That's how
So
that's how these have been going.
Yeah, and they're not draft regulations, they are regulations. There's nothing left
Yes.
there to draft it about, so, because that's basically, they said they've had enough consultations. And to be honest, I think they made things work a bit better both ways. There's certainly more time now, like this budget won't be impacted from what I see with transition unless you come with a plan beforehand, but which you can, but I would be shocked if any conservation authority is going to get going and get everything done before sometime during next year when transition plans can be enacted, but you have until January 1st of 2024 to do so. So, and one thing that I did pick out is that they've included low maintenance passive recreation trails and park areas that you will still be able to do those under your municipal levies, which I believe probably works out better for all of us in the end. A few comments before I turn it over to council, because I was probably the most vocal on council, and as you and I both know, I've sat at that board table before. Probably challenged a lot of things there, but anyway. I'll make a comment about the website first. You do say that you have your agendas on the website, but it takes a rocket scientist to find it. So my suggestion is that you maybe rejig it a bit to put it on the front page if someone wants to get it a little easier. I had to find it. You can find it, it's just work. And if you do, in doing so, making things work, you know, it's there, but you're kind of hiding it a bit. So it's just a suggestion. I think the minister was wanting to make it more open and dynamic. I think that's a suggestion that would work. I did review your order in council. This was a document that your former general manager, secretary, treasurer never really wanted to put out there, but I'm glad to see it. I will say this to it, and I did say it at the time I was there, is that you may want to work with at least all the member municipalities on how appointments are made, and because right now it is assumed that South Dundas, North Dundas, and North Stormont get a position on the board. There's nothing in writing. I know that South Stormont has complained in the past that they have no representation, and North Glengarry technically doesn't have no representation either. So whether it stays the way it is or not should be at least debated. I know Prescott-Russell, they all come from the Prescott-Russell County end of things, so whether we have to do it or not, I don't know, but I think to be fair to yourselves and be fair to the SCG group, that somehow that gets either affirmed or it goes to the counties to make those appointments, and I'll let Councillor Mellon speak to that after. But that was something that, as I said, was always something I wanted to firm up. Now there's an opportunity to do so with the new rig. So. As I say, you know, we have a transition plan that we work on. I do have a question. Within the the mandatory programs, I see nothing speaking to forestry and forestry acquisitions. So what's your take of that?
Under the conservation lands, forestry acquisition is still permissible, but I think we'll have to spend a little time on it and see where it fits as we write it all down. It's coming up in the conservation lands piece. Certainly in a watershed like ours, the past sort of big watershed reports talked about basically we have a very good agricultural watershed, so that we also have quite, sometimes we have challenges keeping forest cover on the landscape, and sometimes that leads to, you know, downstream challenges. So the original programs, including the forestry, especially downstream of the watershed, was to stop desertification and erosion. So where it lands today, it'll be a good question, but certainly in the past, it was a pretty it was an actual connection between what was happening in the watershed and the sediment loading into the river and the watercourses, and what we were doing on the land to try to hold forest cover and slow the runoff. But where it stands right now, I'll have to go back through the tables and see where everyone's landing on it.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to council. Councilor Mellon.
Thank you, Mayor Byfield, and good evening, Angela, and thank you very much for coming, presenting to here tonight to us. This is something that I've been trying to get organized and get arranged, and COVID had no real, no friend of us trying to get things together. But over the last I guess 7 years that I have been on South Nation, I have seen that you know, the board and staff back at South Nation has tried to balance, I guess, if you will, the needs of the municipalities and the partners within the South Nation watershed and the issues that South Nation deal with, and I think they've done an admirable job on that. Your comments about the representation of the partners and in SD&G, just refresh me, Angela. Like, I know the past chair, Bill Smurl, had always encouraged us to you know, attend any functions in those municipalities or townships that have no representation. Do we mail out or just send out, you know, for the general consent portions of those of agendas, you know, just an update in the minutes of South Nation meetings? I think that would maybe help some. We could maybe look at how we can, you know, get better representation. But I mean, right now we have 3 from SD&G on the board, North and South and Dundas and North Grenville. Part of the problem is, you know, there's already 13 on the board, and but I think, you know, we try and I think reach out and make sure that those municipalities are represented. Do we send out the minutes, Angela, and ask that to be posted in their agendas so that they're, you know, aware of the going-ons, I guess, if you will, in South Nation?
There is correspondence that goes out of the communications department, and I'm just not sure how many councils are passing that on. So you're right in that I know that Bill Smurl, certainly for North Dundas, does an admirable job getting on that agenda and providing updates. Now, I would have to just check in. I do know the materials are provided because we've gone through this a few times to say, well, it's very important that people are provided with up-to-date information. If they have questions, they know that they can reach out, and staff will help answer those questions. So let me check with communications and see if we know any type of a metric on how many municipalities are picking up those updates. And frankly, not just how many are picking them up, but what would make them more useful. So if they're not picking them up, what would help them to do that?
Yeah, thank you. And you know, I try and give a quick South Nation report after our meeting.
He is thorough, Angela. I will give him credit for that. We do know what's going on.
But
That's good.
and I appreciate, Angela, you coming here tonight. I can give you the Reader's Digest version of what happens at a director's meeting, but we need somebody with a little more in-depth knowledge and the goings on behind and how things are run to answer any questions that staff has or council has. And I just want you to know that, over the 7 years, Mayor Bybels, I've seen that the hard work, and especially in the last year, I think there's been a lot of extra work on the staff at South Nation trying to implement the changes that have been, coming down the pipe on the Conservation Act. And I think they've done a good job so far, and I think they will continue to do a good job, and I think they will continue to represent the municipalities and the residents of the watershed in the best possible way. So thank you, Angela. I don't think I have anything else I can add, Mayor Bybels.
Okay, Councilor Lewis.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the presentation. I really don't have any questions. Councilor Mellon, he kind of keeps us on what's going on at South Nation, and he is very thorough at it. I think your meetings most likely go for 20 minutes, and he talks for 30 minutes. But other than that, no, you guys are doing a great job so far, so keep the good work up. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Angela, for the presentation. I'll echo, we have a very good representative in Councillor Mellon, so he does keep us up to date. But I do appreciate your time tonight to just go over some things, and looking forward to continue the good partnership.
And I'll concur with Councilor Angela. Thanks for coming. I know it's not an easy job to come to council and explain rules and regulations, even if you are a lawyer, but and the door is always open if you want to start talking transition before you really need to, and there is time, but I think the time is there to be necessary just in case adjustments have to be made. So the door is open. No problem to coming out here, and we'll have a discussion. I know that Councilor Mellon it does carry today for us, and we do thank him for it. So thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Bybels and members of council, and I appreciate the feedback, and I am here as well anytime you need. And I know sometimes those emails come out too, and I don't know if there will be a municipal information session or anything that comes out of that. I know that the conservation authorities are supposed to be having one coming up with the ministry. That has yet to be set. So if you receive anything and you have any questions at all, we're your local point on that, and we don't always know when those things are coming out. And as you've picked us up on astutely, Mayor Bybels, they're often on a Friday or just before a long weekend or something like that, just to keep us fresh and keep us on our toes. So.
Yeah, and just to let you know, I actually went and read the regulations the other day since I was between wagon loads. So I went through my phone, I went through them all. The trouble is there's a lot of changes there. It takes a lawyer to figure it all out, to be honest. So good luck.
You certainly picked a nice night for a council meeting. So
yes, we did.
That's nice. Okay. Well, thank you very much, and remain here for anything you wish to discuss anytime.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, so we're moving on to action requests. First one is TS 2021-09 Taylor Road Bridge.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that Council accept report TS 2021-09 to proceed with Keystone Bridge Management Corporation for the investigation and design consideration to replace the Taylor Road Bridge.
Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So during our committee of the whole meeting on September 28th, Harold Claywit from Keystone Bridge Management Corporation outlined the overall condition of the Taylor Road Bridge, which is asset number 31-138. In his presentation, he estimated the bridge to be constructed in the 1930s. It's a steel stringer bridge with a timber deck travel portion. The timber deck is pronounced decay and then is at the end of its normal service life. He also outlined some other abnormalities, I guess you would call it, or safety concerns, which caused the bridge to be closed immediately. The report showed the following safety concerns. 3 of the 5 load-bearing stringers exhibited severe perforation, edge thinning, and section loss of the bottom cord. The abutment at the north end showed signs of rotation, and again, the decay of the deck boards mid-span. 3 options were presented to council for consideration to repair the bridge, one being the removal of the bridge and the abutments completely and leaving it vacant, perform some rehabilitation, and replace with some form of a modular panel bridge, that being a prefab. Through our procurement policy, we do have the authority to sole source and for the engineering and the design services for the Taylor Road Bridge. At this point, we believe it would be beneficial to move forward with Keystone as they have already done the prelim work leading up to the presentation on September 28th. I'll be willing to answer any questions which you may have at this time.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Before I turn it over to council, do we have any idea of, we do have a range of price? Has Harold had an opportunity to give us any kind of pricing whatsoever yet?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, no, he wasn't able to give me that until the project was awarded. Then he was going to reach out to his people and gain firm pricing, which I would then bring back to council at a later date.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Gardner, comments, questions, concerns?
Thanks, Mayor Barfield. Jeff, with the, and I mean, I'm speaking generally, but I do know that the daughter of one of the residents that's close to that bridge contacted me. Do we have any dialogue? I'm looking at the communications plan. Do we have any dialogue in case the residents have missed the fact that we're rehabilitating? Do we have any dialogue with some of the residents that would be greatly impacted because of their proximity to the bridge? They use it on a regular basis?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I have received no comments, neither for positive or against being negative for rehab or replacement of that bridge.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, do we communicate to the residents that are impacted by the bridge being closed that we are now moving ahead with almost being proactive, right? If they have concerns, I'm not talking about the residents in the greater geographic area. I'm talking about the ones that are immediately going to be impacted. Do we let them know that we're gonna, we're looking at rehabilitating it, or do we just kind of hope that they see it in the paper?
Well, we put it on social media, but I couldn't go out. There's only 5 residents,
Yeah.
4 households on that street. I can easily go and knock on their door. That's not
I
a
mean,
problem. I can notify them.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. The daughter of one just, the residents, some of them may not be on social media and they will be concerned about whatever and whether it's going to be closed or whatever. I mean, I don't want to add to your plate, but I think it's important when we make a decision moving ahead that it's nice to have the municipal staff interact somewhat with the residents that are greatly impacted. It's my only comment.
Council Lewis?
I have no questions, Jeff. I think after the meeting on September 28th, it was very lengthy, and we decided what we were going to do. And I definitely don't have any problem whatsoever with Keystone going ahead with whatever has to be done, because they've already started it, and why change when you don't have to? Thank you.
Council Mellon?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Byvelds. I guess the one thing that was in my mind, and you've already asked about the firm pricing on that, we haven't got to that yet, or they haven't been able to give that to us. It'll be coming back at a later meeting once we, if we go ahead with securing them as our engineer on this. Also, I would like to know, Jeff, like when you talk to them, possibly what their time frame would be. They know, I guess, that we're pushing the timeline now. You're hoping to have this work done and ready to go tender in March, I believe you said. I'd like to see that time frame to be very firm and ASAP. Because I can see how things can drag out, and in a few months into the new year, we'll be getting, I forget when you fall into that lame duck category. And I don't wanna, I like to.
Not there.
we
We'll make
should-
it before that.
Yeah, we should be before that, but I'm just, that's the, so, yeah, firm up the pricing, what they'd be looking at, and bring that back, as the mayor has already alluded to, and their timeframe. What are they looking at? I don't want this to get pushed onto their back burner. I want this front and center on, so that they know, I think they know we're sort of up against the clock a little bit here, and just to confirm that, I guess. So, but I have no problem with going ahead with them. The presentation was very thorough on their part, and I have utmost faith in their presentation and in their management company from their presentation. So, yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay, and I don't have any issues with Keystone coming back and doing this work. Just the challenge of being open-ended. I like to see at least some pricing that we know what we're getting into. It's fair to them, fair to us, and as Councillor Mellon has alluded to, timelines will be probably very important on this project going forward. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I did speak with Harold, and he did believe, and he understands what the municipality is up against as far as council wanting to deliver on some form of a structure at that location. So in his conversations, he does believe that once he can secure pricing, that I will receive the pricing, and I'll bring that back to you. And he's very confident in an early March tender date. We're going to miss the January, which would be ideal, but there's just too much work to do, doing all the prelim stuff and then the tender design. So he believes that early March will get us that second wave of companies that weren't successful in January, that they're going to be looking for work, and that we'll still be able to meet the construction period after the municipality is able to start digging. And then that'll lead us to hopefully an opening next fall.
Go ahead, Councilor Mellon.
Yeah, if we go ahead with Keystone, will they take care of all the hydrology studies that have to be done, everything as far as, permitting from South Nation's perspective, floodplain mapping, the whole bit? So there won't be, that'll all be included in their pricing, will it not? I hope, because we don't need any surprises, we want to make sure that we got our I's dotted and T's crossed, so we don't have something that, pops up after they bring their what we think is ready for tender in early March. But everything will be so that when we slap her on the table for tender, all the permits, all the approval agencies have been taken care of, right?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank
This
you.
is like a one-stop shop. Keystone is going to oversee all the prelim work, and they're going to see this through to completion.
Yeah.
Okay, anything further from any members of council? Seeing none, all heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Thank you, Jeff. We're into bylaws. First one's 2021-100, food cycler agreement.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Mellon, that bylaw number 2021-100, being a bylaw to execute an agreement with Food Cycle Science Corporation for the development of an organic waste diversion initiative through the introduction of a pilot program utilizing Food Cycle Science's food cycler technology, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Shannon?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is a follow-up to our last meeting where we had Alex come and present to Council. So this is the formal agreement. Council will note that they have waived the $25 per unit restocking fee. We feel very confident that the 100 units will be gone pretty fast anyways, but just in case, it is there to cover the municipality. What we would like to do is, between myself and our communication coordinator and food cycler, is to work out a next steps as far as getting the program out sometime in early fall with hopefully an implementation date of January 1st of next year for the 90 days. So, Council has any questions? I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, quick question. Did we have anybody come and ask for them already?
We've had about 5 or 6 already asked.
Okay,
already.
well, it's good to
Yeah.
hear. Deputy Mayor,
No, my email, I forward them on to you. So, yeah, I'm aware of the folks looking for it. So, yeah, let's go. It'll be an option, and I'm hoping that it'll be a fun option, but also a different way of looking at things. So, yeah, it's a good option. Thank you.
Councilor Lewis?
No, once again, we had a very lengthy discussion. I think this is, it's going to be a good thing. And I think it's going to be very good for the citizens of South Dundas. And don't be shocked if we don't have to order more than just 100 at that time. I'm happy with it. Let's go.
Councilor Mellon?
Drum on.
All heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Next bylaw is 2021-101, sale of land to Habitat.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Mellon, that bylaw number 2021-101, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement for the sale of land to Habitat for Humanity, Seaway Valley, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Go ahead.
If we recall back a couple of years ago, we started this process with Habitat to sever the recreation lot in Winchester Springs so they could have the half with the septic and the well. We've now concluded all those little projects for that land and everything was clear. So we're ready to finalize the sale with Habitat.
Okay. Councilor Mellon, any?
No, great.
Get started.
Awesome. Yep.
As I said in the past, dealing with Habitat and providing the land for them to build affordable homes is a good thing for South Dundas, and we've done our share in the past, and hopefully we can continue on, though I do think we're running out of land to deal with, so this works. If all heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Next bylaw, 2021-102, LiDAR acquisition agreement with SNC.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Mellon, that bylaw number 2021-102, being a bylaw to execute an agreement with South Nation Conservation Authority for procuring airborne topographic LiDAR for areas in their respective jurisdictions for use in a range of applications, including but not limited to asset management and land use planning. Be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Shannon?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is a follow-up to a lengthy discussion we had at budget time. As Council will recall, South Nation did apply under the National Disaster Mitigation Fund. They were unsuccessful, but as required, they're only requesting the original amount that we put in the budget of $5,565 plus HST. I did reach out to South Nation just to question where they were getting the difference as far as not getting funding from the government. They indicated that more stakeholders came to the table, as well as because they were doing a larger area, they got a better competitive price to do the work. So the work in total is $149,000 plus HST. According to South Nation, they're hoping to start it in the fall, but if not, it will be flown early next spring, and all South Dundas will be completed. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Any comments, questions, concerns from any member of council on this? No. All heard the motion, those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries. (2021-103) ICIP Morrisburg Pathway Rehabilitation.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that bylaw number 2021-103, being a bylaw to execute a transfer payment agreement for the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Stream, local government intake with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario, as represented by the Minister of Infrastructure for the Morrisburg Pathway Rehabilitation. Be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Shannon?
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. So this is the agreement for the Morrisburg Pathways, which originally was required to be completed by the end of this year. We actually just got correspondence just before the long weekend that they've extended the substantial completion to 2023. But I think in all grand scheme of things, with it being under budget, getting it done this year is the best thing moving forward anyway. So this executes the agreement, and then there'll be another extension that we'll have to assign as well too. But if there's any questions, be more than happy to answer them.
Council, have any comments, questions, concerns on this bylaw? I trust everyone's read every word in that agreement. Okay, good. All heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. It is quite lengthy.
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda, please.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Lewis, that all items listed under general consent section of the agenda be adopted as presented, save and except for item 9F be moved to discussion items.
This evening, we have a key information report on a fleet repairs update. Thank you, Transportation. A key information report on capital update. Key information report on the service line warranty update, and I hope that goes better than the last time it went out. Key information report on third quarter budget to actual, on good information from Treasury, and we also have an unfinished business summary. We've all heard the motion. Those in favor? Opposed if any, motion carries. Okay, boards and committees and discussion items, sorry. So we did have a county council committee of the whole meeting. So not a council meeting, but a general discussion on some items at county council, and I'll give you an update on what we did talk about. Keep in mind, none of this was passed at a regular council meeting, so it's still open to changing. We had a presentation from our weed inspector, Peter Leonard. He still has some significant concerns over the growing of wild parsnip in our right-of-ways. Following that, we had a roadside vegetation control discussion concerning some options of trying to do a better job with roadside cutting. Staff will be working on trying to condense the program. Currently, the roadside mowing does not get completed till mid or end of September, and in discussions with the weed inspector, it was suggested that we move that timeline ahead at least a month, or else we'll be cutting to get ahead of them going to seed. So staff will be coming back with some options on that. They did have some options, but many of them were priced out of our range. We'd have a discussion on signage on county roads. So in the end, the blades appear to be coming back, the ones that have disappeared on the major roads, and some will now appear on the other county roads. The entrance bylaw was a 2-hour marathon, I think. In the end, we did decide that those who had existing entrances, that they would be granted those entrances till they decided they wanted to be changed. If the counties are doing reconstruction like they did in St. Andrews West and in Martintown, then they would keep the original widths. And there was also discussion on farm entrance widths, and I did direct the county engineer to talk to the local Federation of Agriculture to get some feedback on that. We did acquire some money to look at the jail area at the SDG Administration Building. As some of you are aware, the west end of the building and underneath the council chambers was formerly a jailhouse for our area. There was also a piece built on in the 90s to accommodate more inmates. That piece is not really well used and is in challenging repair. However, we found money, or we received money from I believe RTO 9 to see what we can do with that. And I did caution them that that there's not a lot of sense of working in a building that either most council members didn't want to keep, or it was going to cost us a lot of money, so those notes were taken. And then we also had a discussion on the warden method of election and term of office. There was a suggestion put on the table that the sitting warden wouldn't be able to vote, but that was nixed later on as it is not a legally conforming to the Municipal Act. All members can vote. So the challenges of the ties will remain for now. We had a discussion on the rotation. In the past, there was the unassumed rotation of going from through SDG every year, and that was changed. So while it was never put into procedure bylaw, it was not put in the new one in 2013 on the understanding that the best person would be the person that county council hopefully elect to the position, because it is now more than ceremonial. It is very important that we have a good warden that represents SDG well, especially at the Warden's Caucus. So that was left alone. And the only other thing we did add is that we had a suggestion from another county that to cover if the warden was incapacitated or could not do their job, that job would go back to the former sitting warden to fill in the position until a new warden was appointed. So that's the plan. It all has to go through council someday down the road. Any comments, questions, concerns? Councilor Mellon.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. So at the Dundas Federation of Agriculture meeting last
Wednesday night.
Wednesday, there was quite an in-depth discussion, went on for quite a while about the entranceway policy, and there was 2 or 3 motions that they were going to draft a letter and 2 or 3 motions of what the letter, but I think at the end of the day, I said that, that you would, talk to Ben DeHaan and so I think the Dundas Federation was going to ask the South Dundas Ag Advisory Committee to, review the policy and maybe, take the lead on it. Even though it is a South Dundas Ag Advisory, it affects all of Dundas. But I believe that's how it was left, because it was quite confusing how they were going to go about dealing with it. But there was quite a discussion about it. So.
Okay, I did reach out to their president to give us, South Dundas, some suggestions on entrance policy, because we had that debate at our council just recently also. So, and then I just passed it further up the food chain to the counties, because counties did have some ideas, but I thought they did have a letter from a producer that did state some concerns on entrance widths and what they'd like to see. So we'll see what comes back. Yep. As much as you and I sit here and could represent the ag community, I think sometimes we need to allow the ag community to make their own voice heard too. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, anything else? Okay, that's it, thank you. Iroquois District Business Group did not meet, but I did get an email from Candace stating that one of the owners of Gilmer Pharmacies, Doug, passed away yesterday. Doug and I actually went to school together, and so he certainly will be missed by Tracy and the family, and I'm certainly be missed by all his patrons in Iroquois, no doubt about that. So do send our condolences to the family. Works with VIA.
Letters are out. The chair, if he didn't have addresses, he was going to hand deliver them to the business groups. There is a meeting set up late October. All of council have been invited, and it's at 29th? 27th. The 27th October at 7 p.m. at McIntosh Inn. So I hope to see some of my council members there. Thank you.
Do a plan to attend.
Good.
South Nation Conservation? Nope. Do you need any direction on levy setting from us tonight? I suspect that the city of Ottawa will kind of drive that as it is, so.
When they pay 90, 80.
80%.
They pull a lot of weight, but then on the other hand, like in the 7 years I've been there, I've never seen them use that trump card. You know, the city say.
They
well,
threatened
okay.
it once when I was there.
You know,
They did threaten it once. Yeah.
And, you know, so it's
So-
not a weighted
so-
vote, if you will, but,
So the trump card the city of Ottawa has is that since they pay that kind of levy, they can use that a portion during a budget discussion. So they can actually acquire more votes, so. Well, they pay 80% of the freight, so
Well,
there was one time they did, I remember them pulling the trump
they've
card
never,
out.
you know, they've never done that when I've been on there, and
Yeah.
I guess it's kudos to them and, you know, trying to work with all the partners, but, you know.
Well, to be honest, ever since Mayor Watson came back in 2010, they've been pretty firm with all their partners that 2% the first term and now 3% that's it. Don't come back with anything more to the city, and South Nation has worked within them, so.
Yeah.
The only thing I will say this time is, as Angela did mention, we are still living in COVID times, you know, and whatever, they can send whatever to us, we don't have a choice, we have to forward the check yet. In the end, our residents have to pay, so,
yeah.
okay. Morrison Waterfront,
October 20th is the next meeting.
Airco Waterfront, we will discuss later on. They will be having another meeting this Thursday night. South Branch,
No, you haven't, I believe you reached out to them and they're going to have a meeting.
Correct.
I haven't heard anything yet, but
Yeah, they're looking at scheduling a meeting with, I think, a next round of applications coming up. So I think they're going to reach out to Councillor Mellon very shortly.
thank you, Shannon.
Carmen House,
Haven't heard anything back.
Dundas County Archives, nothing, Tourism Advisory.
We had a meeting October 4th. Pretty much an update. I will say this though, I was at Pumpkin Furno last night at Upper Canada Village, and our tourism app is nicely on display around the main corner. There's like there's 2 Adirondack chairs, spotlights on it, and then it's got the sign for the tourism app. So as you go by, you go. So I will say kudos to the SLPC because that partnership has been quite nice to the back and forth, and them allowing us to promote South Dundas. It's been really nice. So it was it was a nice surprise. I knew that the sign was somewhere, but you never know if it's going to be tucked behind a pumpkin or out front. And it was front and center actually. You come around the corner and it kind of stands on its own, and yeah, it was really nice to see. So, yep.
Good. How well attended is Pumpkin Furnace? Sold out, is it?
It's hard to get tickets.
Yeah. I
Yeah, we
haven't
had to
even
go at
tried.
9, which was not super convenient with Reagan, but lots of people. It was beautifully done. I had been about 2-3 years since I'd gone, and new stuff to see, and it was beautiful. Of course, it was gorgeous night last night too, so that kind of helped. But yeah, no, it was awesome. It was really, really well done and well attended and very, very well organized. So.
Okay, any comments, questions? Economic Development?
We meet October 14th. The committee is now at the point where they are tabulating and reviewing the submissions for the awards.
Okay, Doctor Advisory?
Expecting hopefully a date from Health Force Ontario this week.
Carrier pigeon?
We're hoping.
Okay.
Okay. We have a key information report tonight on our boil water advisory protocol review progress. Kaylin?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, from all the way back here in this room. So this is coming to you after the low pressure event that happened in August. At that time, we realized that we definitely needed to update our protocols as they hadn't been done since 2012. So what you have in front of you tonight is the draft that we're proposing for the update. Because of the changes, it is coming to you in 2 separate formats. So you have the old version, which is the first document that's attached, and then you have the draft version below that. Some of the things that we've added and changed are separate descriptions for a precautionary boil water advisory and a regular boil water advisory. This came about in discussions with Dennis because there is a bit of a difference between them. What the precautionary is just that. It's not a full boil water advisory, and so we did want to be able to have a little bit of leeway in the way that we provide notifications, such as it's not as drastic, so we don't need to do door to door, but we do have the other methods of getting the message out there. In the same vein, we've had an update to all of the businesses. Now that's not in the actual public package because there are some personal phone numbers and contact information in those. Same with the list of media, because some of those emails and those phone numbers are not listed for the public. They are private numbers that are for emergencies. But we do have those available, and they were all updated with this new draft. And our Economic Development Officer, Rob Hunter, was the one to go through the business list, so he has checked that out, and we'll update that as we go and as more businesses come and go. Other than that, obviously you have it in your package, so at this time we're looking for comments, additions, deletions, anything like that from council.
Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, so Kayla and I went through it. I like the document, lots of good information. Wondering if part of the communication plan is to potentially send it out with a water bill as a kind of a, like if we had just a preamble, what happens if there is a event or whatever you want to call it, and just what to look for, kind of a preamble to the language before it actually occurs. Because the time to notify someone isn't whenever they've realized that they've brushed their teeth and had their kids drink their breakfast stuff and all that fun stuff. People get super sensitive to it, so I think if we're going to re-educate, especially with the different levels, that may be important. I think if I got a card in my water bill, I'd pay attention to it and maybe title, what happens if there's whatever you want to call it. The other thing is too, there's no longer a Max Milk in Morrisburg. So just when you're looking through your notification to residents and posting locations, you may want to have a look at that. And I was thinking about whether or not you may consider like libraries as an option as well. I don't know if it's...
The Morrisburg Library is on there.
Is there? Okay. So maybe the Iroquois Library, if you did it?
Yep.
But the thing was just the Max Milk. I don't know if you meant McEwen or like if you put it in the McEwen spot maybe, I don't
I'll
know.
reconfirm with
Yeah, but my concern was was the potential for a preamble before the event actually happens, just to get residents familiar with the wording. So those are my comments, Mayor.
Yeah, we could certainly do maybe like a once a year kind of thing or something like that. We
Yeah.
can look into that option.
Yep,
For sure.
thank you.
Councilor Lewis?
I have to agree with the deputy mayor. I don't know if we put it in with the water bill or we put it in post offices, but because the people, they were concerned at the last time. I don't know how many phone calls I got and how many people knocked on my door, and I said it was just nothing serious. It was just, to be safe. So I think a little education out to the people would work out good for them, and that's just about it. But I read it, and it's pretty plain, pretty simple. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Mellon?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Deputy Mayor Gardner has a good point there. The mail out. Where these things are posted, I guess, is one thing. I mean, it's an advisory. I'm just wondering about our senior residents, like in Williamsburg here in Morrisburg. Like, I mean, should we put maybe a little more emphasis on making sure that's included in, where the posting locations and stuff? I think that should be front and center to touch base with those locations. At the JW McIntosh and over here at Carrefour. But other than that, Mayor Byvells, I think it's step in the right direction.
Okay, so JW McIntosh is not part of our water system, so don't write that one
Oh.
down.
Yep, yep.
But if you're talking Morrisburg, you got the Hartford, technically the business, but still a pretty important one if there's an issue.
Yeah.
And then the Morris Glen Court and the Iona Apartments in Iroquois are both run by Cornwall and Area Housing, and that'll name will change too, but at least then they're mainly seniors, so that don't get out as often. Now, I know there's more than them, but at least we have the cores, and that's, you know, we can't put it to everybody. It's a good redress. This is actually my second time. I was on the first one, we had nothing, literally nothing. So as much as the first one had holes in it, we had zero before that. I think the key to this is how fast we can get the information out. We did a very poor job, and no disrespect to you, you weren't here, but we did a very poor job of the last one. I think that onus of who does what has to disappear very quickly off our supervisor of water and wastewater, because all he can do at that time is tell higher ups, we need to get the advisory out, and then that has to happen somewhere else because he's busy putting the fire out. Yeah, and you know, and talking to Dennis at 7 o'clock the next day when we were already 8 hours plus into it technically, and then wait until 11, and then, you know, all the grocery stores, the restaurants, everything was still using the water and not knowing it. So we need to, that's the key. We need to figure out how we do it quickly. And I know you have a report coming up on how to fix some of that, and that may be the best thing going, but we as council need to, and staff have to figure out how do we get, if there's an issue, get that message out as quick as possible. Can't be instant, I understand that, but we gotta get a lot better than we did the last 2 times, that's for sure. We still haven't figured this out, so. Other than that, it's a good update. I think, you know, there is a difference, there's no doubt about it. There actually probably wasn't anything wrong with the water. Dennis had it actually tested, but if you have an issue like low pressure, you have to do this just in case, so. Dennis, are you on there? Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'm on here. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree. I think we need to get better at getting stuff to the public, and we will do better the next time. Hopefully there isn't a next time, but if there is a next time, that's one thing we can definitely improve on.
Okay. Any further comments? Anything from you, Caitlin, on it?
I'll just add that we totally agree with that, and so our hope is that those templates that are at the bottom of the protocols, they'll be put into a common file so that no matter who is there, they can just pull those out and fill in the highlighted spots and use the list that we have to get the information out there.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. Thank you for that. Next one, key information report on the mass notification system. Go ahead again.
Thank you. Okay, so in light of what happened and in light of wanting to get information out as quickly as possible, one of the things that I started looking into after the boil water advisory happened was a mass notification system. So this is a lot like the alerts that you get, like Amber Alerts, or if there's a weather alert that comes to your phone directly and you hear that loud speaker beeping sound that occasionally wakes us up in the middle of the night. So this would be a lot like that, except it's an opt-in situation. So we can add people if we have their phone numbers and they can opt out, but for the majority of it, it is an opt-in situation. So our hope is that this kind of system would allow us to use it for our emergency management committee in any kind of emergency situation, fires, accidents that we needed to keep people away from certain areas. We had the incident at Ross Video last week. We could use that to keep people out of a certain radius, boil water advisories, anything like that. But it can also be used for non-emergency situations that are a little bit more I guess not as pressing, where you don't need that great big beeping sound to tell you that something's different. It can just be a text notification that says that there's a road closure or anything like that. There are a lot of possibilities with this system. So in our research, I had not thought this would be a possibility until at least 2022 budget time, until I had a meeting, and this was my last of several, with Voyant Alert. They are a Canadian company, one of few. Most of them are American. They work with a lot of municipalities. Mostly they got their start in Western Canada, but they have been moving into Central and Eastern Canada. They were really impressive, both in price and services. One of those things that really caught my eye during this meeting was they have a 24-hour, they call it a concierge service. So if the boil water advisory had happened like it did in August and I wasn't here, then any number of staff could contact this concierge service, and under their direction, the concierge would actually put out the boil water advisory, which I thought was really great, and it's the only one that had that service that I looked into. So because of the price, which was very competitive compared to everything else I looked at, I did want to bring it to council for consideration to maybe move forward with it a little bit sooner than the 2022 budget. I'd like to do at our committee of the whole next week a demo. So I was really impressed with the demo, and I would love for council to be able to see it so they can see what we would be working with. The demo is really exciting because we will actually take your phone numbers and you'll get alerts so you can see what it looks like. So it would be about 30 minutes with questions. And so tonight, basically what we'd like to do is talk about the possibility of bringing this on board. And if you're interested, we'll book the demo for the committee of the whole, and then we can move forward with an agreement from there.
Okay, Councilor Mellon.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good, but I'm not thinking, I'm glad, you know, it's, to bring it back to the committee of the whole and see it, but I don't know if we should be jumping, I mean, with this company just yet. This has potential, but I think our older population that maybe aren't up on the technology of, you know, the phones and, you know, paging system or, you know, alert system in there. I'd like to see the pricing, if you will, from the other companies and what services they provide. You know, and you're saying this is a very competitive, and okay, I'll you know, but just to satisfy my own personal, you know, inquisitive mind, I'd like to see, you know, some comparison numbers, comparison services they're providing, and you know, yeah. So if we're planning on something for next Monday night, it might be interesting to go, but I don't think we should rely on this. The only thing I can see, if we get the uptake with our residents, it definitely does have, you know, potential. I'm just a little bit apprehensive as whether or not some of our older residents will actually, and they're the most vulnerable ones, and should be getting the mass notification. You know, if they're going to use it as much as, that's my only, that's, you know, just a little bit problematic on that. You know, hopefully they would, but you know, some of them aren't tech savvy enough to want to bother with it. So.
Caitlin had her hand up.
Oh, okay. Oh.
If I can address that. So one of the really nice things about all of the mass notification systems is that it sends a voice automated message to a landline. So for our older residents who don't necessarily have cell phones, don't have social media, don't know how to use maybe tech quite as well, they'll get a phone call from South Dundas, and it'll be an automated message that reads the alert out to them. It'll leave a message on their phone if they don't pick up. So if they are screening their calls because they think it's a spam, at least we'll have that option. But that's one of the reasons why I really liked this, because it does kind of solve, as long as we get the uptake, our social media issue that we've been having for years of how do we reach more people.
Okay, you know, yeah, I did see that in there. Apologize, I missed that it would go to the landline. So show me what you got, I guess.
You're good for a demo?
Yeah, I'm good for a
Okay,
demo. I
okay.
want to see something
I
first.
don't think it ever hurts to have a demo, right?
Yeah,
As long as it doesn't cost you money.
yeah, I know.
I know, it's okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Lewis?
I think it's a great idea, but before I make my decision, I would like to see the demo. I'd like to get a little more educated on this one here,
Yep.
because I just think about seeing the demo, I'm like, it's like buying a horse and not seeing it. Okay, so I'll keep my opinion until we see the demo. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor. I thought I was going to sneeze. Love, 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 love this. I
Guess
am.
you're voting for it no matter what. Okay.
Well, it solves more problems than just our communication problem. I believe that social media now, especially, just has added such a negative element. And when we have any situation that there's a safety concern around it, people get bogged down in the comments and forget about what they need to do for the safety thing. So as far as trying to build a stronger community, a caring community, a community that's not getting bogged down, we're taking the power away from social media, and I'm all for that. So fabulous. Anytime we can maybe, just kind of gradually take ourselves away from that dependence on it, I think it's fabulous. We have full control. The only question I would have is just the timing of it, because one of the things that with the Amber Alerts that people get a little bit wound up about is at 2 o'clock. So if in the demo we can see where we can control it, so maybe a boil water or whatever would, we could control the messaging, or the way the people can control the way they get the message.
Yep.
If they're asleep, the messaging wouldn't overpower their snooze. Like I have a snooze on my phone, so nobody will bother me, until I wake up, kind of thing. So, that type of thing. But no, I think this is why people gravitated to social media in the first place. Mm-hmm. It's not working. That experiment has failed. So I think this is great. And I love the residential phone line thing. I know plenty of seniors that have cell phones, and we do a tablet exercise, and maybe integrating some of the tools that we use into that training with Janine would be fabulous as well, right? To kind of get the message out. So, and I suggest this is probably something that an adult kid could set up for their mom or dad on the cell phone if they do have a cell phone. So, no, I like innovation, and like I said, if it takes us away from social media because everyone's afraid we're going to miss something, this would be great. And road management. You know what I mean? If when we talked about the plows getting out or whatever, being able to send that message, even sharing road conditions so people aren't guessing and stuff. There's so many applications for this, if used wisely. That's the only caveat. Use it wisely.
Yes, or else it'd be like cry wolf, and then
Yeah.
people won't be paying
Yeah,
attention
it'll have to be
anymore.
used wisely.
Yeah, I'm all for a demo. I do believe it has some good potential. And as much as Deputy Mayor says she doesn't want to hear that alert at 2 o'clock in the morning, if we're going to have boil water advisory, it's going to be 2 o'clock in the morning because we got to beat them before they're up. And that's life. Kind of reminds me of the time when a very dedicated senior member of the Williamsburg Fire Department called me up at 2 o'clock in the morning and tell me that Dunbar Hall was gone. Kind of wakes you up. You're not sleeping after that. Unfortunately, I think that's the extreme. I think there's a lot of potential, and I think bringing the demo to that meeting will be good. Thank you, Kalen. Key information report, truck tender review. Jeff.
So thank you, Mayor and Council. So in front of you, during our committee of the whole meeting on September 28th, we had a very good discussion concerning the truck tender. Changes were made, and the following changes were that we removed the specific line items, and the tender now reads that it shall be a fleet work truck with the 4 criterias: white in color, 4-wheel drive, installed hitch and factory brake controller with chrome bumpers and aluminum rims. I believe I encompassed everything that was discussed during that committee of the whole meeting, and I'll be answer any questions which you may have at this time.
Councilor Mellon?
I am very apprehensive with this. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really find, yes, there was some items in that line item things that, you know, maybe were a little bit over the top, I guess, if you will, you know. But I'm just afraid that, you know, when we get, without having being more specific in what we're asking for, because there's nowhere in here, like, I mean, somebody could give us a truck with tires that could last 5,000 kilometers. And, you know, we asked for Michelins before that might last 50,000. That's not a very good asset management tool. You know, that in 6 months or a year's time to roll, we're going to replace the tires and somebody's going to be screaming, wow, why are we replacing the tires on a brand new truck? The old tender package maybe was a little bit over the top. There were some items in there that could have been removed, but unfortunately, most times they're bundled together. So like if you want air conditioning, you're going to get cup holders. You know, that sort of thing. The way this is right now, I'm just afraid that it's going to come back to the council table and we're going to be sitting here saying, well, you know, do we want one with the 6-cylinder engine or the 8-cylinder, the heavier transmission, the better tires? It's, you know, and then that's my only, I don't really want to support this the way it is because it's just, it leaves it way too open as far as I'm concerned to interpretation and what we're going to be getting. And what we're going to, you know, you get what you pay for. Also, there's nothing in here as far as a penalty if they don't deliver. There's $100, that $100 thing again, which is nothing as far as I'm concerned. And we're looking at April delivery, right, Jeff?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I had to put a date in, so I'm hoping to receive by April.
You know, why April? Like, I mean, that's 6 months away. Either they can supply us with a truck. We're renting trucks right now, are we not? Or have been? Have been. We're scraping by with what we got.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we were renting a few vehicles that have now been returned. Basically, we're going to make do with what we have. As Jeff indicated previously, is once the winter months come, there is a little bit more flexibility when it comes to trucks because our guys are in the plows, but it'll get us through this year and hopefully have a better idea of where, when we get the new vehicles, hopefully early next year.
You know, okay. And, you know, that $100 per day, you know, to me, it should be a firm date, and if they're not able to deliver, as far as I'm concerned, there should be a severe penalty. And I think all contracts we enter into for goods and services provided should have something in there that's got a little bit more bite. If they're supposed to deliver by April 1st, it should be delivered by April 1st. And if there's not, you know, I think we need something in there. As far as I'm concerned, you know, disqualify, you know, if somebody doesn't deliver, disqualify them for 1 or 2 years from bidding on, you know, that, you could say, oh, that might eliminate somebody, but I don't think it will. It'll save us the hassle of waiting 6 months and find out, oh, we're not getting the truck. You know, that part bothers me. And I think that the tender is too vague as far as I'm concerned of what we're asking. I don't think we need to be, you know, we're not asking for the Taj Mahal trucks, but the way it's worded there now with only the 4 items, you know, we're getting a motor and a truck, a motor and tires, and we don't even know what kind of motor. You know, we're not being specific enough as far as I'm concerned. But that's all for now, Mayor Byvells.
Councilor Lewis, much experience with trucks in this municipality.
I do believe the first original tender was a little maybe out of this world, but this one here, no, it's too lean. I know one time I bought the municipality bought a 2010 I won't say what make it is. And I was going up the number 2 highway one day and it had 10,000 kilometers on it and I heard ping, 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 ping. It was the rubber coming out of the tires because they were cheap tires. And I honestly think that we should at least say what kind of tires we want. Because you know yourself, Jeff, a good tire is a good tire. And if you get a cheap tire, and I'm not going to say any brands or makes, they're too soft, and once those tires get heated up, it don't take long for the rubber to be flying out. But I do believe the original tender was a little strong, but I think this one here, this new tender is just a little too lean. I think that we have to make sure that we are getting what the bang for our buck. And as I said on September 28th, I would not buy a 6-cylinder truck for the municipality of South Dundas because they don't have the take. If it was up to me, I'd strictly go with V8s, 4-wheel drive. But that's your decision, not mine, and that's where I'll leave it for now. Thank you.
Okay. In the essence, it is our decision, not Jeff's, so,
Yeah, but, yeah.
as a consensus. Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so for the trucks, for all the base models or the work truck models, have we done the research to know for every brand what the basic model looks like? Anyone want to answer?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the base model is what I pretty well described in that tender: cloth seats, rubber floors. They all come with air conditioning now. A base model for a Chevy has power windows, and a base model for a Ford has crank windows. It's just, whenever it comes to base, it's kind of wide open when it, from what each supplier offers.
Okay, so if you went on the 2021 specs of what the base model offers, you're saying that a Ford base model that's a 2021 has crank windows, but the basics are the cloth seats and stuff. That's what you're saying?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the last tender which we had, being the 3/4 tons, we received 2 of them, and they came with crank windows as their base model truck.
Okay. Just, that's my only concern with this. I don't think, I found the other tender really finicky. Each car brand has their base model. And I get that I think when you were building this, if you were looking at what the base models offer, if there was a problem with one of the brands offering a base model that was too basic, then I could see putting a supplementary requirement in there if it was something that we needed. But a base model is going to get you from A to B. As far as tires are concerned, I suppose you could put, I don't know, a rating or whatever the case may be. I think naming one specific brand is a little bit silly. I would potentially list, equal to or equivalent to, and all tires have ratings as far as the kilometers are concerned. So you would put what the tire rating would be acceptable. At the committee, the whole meeting, I listened to what folks said, and I don't think, one of the things with these tenders is we get so weighed down that we box ourselves in, and then we miss opportunities of getting, if there's a truck on the lot or whatever. So you don't want to make it too difficult, but if there's something in those base models that one of the base models does not include and we absolutely need it, then put it in as something that is required, and then that manufacturer will have to give us the level up. I mean, I'm not a truck enthusiast. Obviously, folks around the table have a lot more thing, but I have car shopped. And I know base models are different. It's one of the reasons why I stick with Honda. But, I would have a look at that and just see what's necessary. The other thing I would say, and it's just point of view, maybe it's because it was International Girl Day yesterday, any of our forms should not have Dear Sirs in there. I know that it's being sent to our male staff members, but yeah, it's under the form of tender. I think that we need to have kind of an inclusionary language in all our documents, and I know some folks might find that nitpicky, but you may get a female filling out this form and may not want to, the Dear Sirs thing seems very dated. So that's my comment with that.
Before I go on, I agree full-heartedly with Deputy Mayor Gardner on that. We need to look at all our forms to deal with masculinity, femininity, whatever you want to deal with it. In all the years I've sat at this table, and it's not very many, this is the longest I've ever talked about buying a truck. We did have a debate about four-wheel drive way back in the old days in the Williamsburg office, and that took away. I can still remember Charles saying we didn't need a four-wheel drive truck, but you know, understand that they do come in handy now. Question before I go on. Jeff, aluminum rims. Why aluminum rims? What's your spec on there? Because most fleet trucks come with steel.
Just because of the paint on them, they flake and then they start rusting. There's more of a maintenance involved in the aluminum rims,
Okay.
longer maintenance.
Okay. Aluminum rims can give you headaches too because they start corroding and then they don't seal as well. So conversely, I would disagree with you. You can paint our mechanic seems to like painting, so that would just be a little side job every 5 years to do anyway. I'm going to speak for, you know, at the last meeting, there was a counselor here that, talked fleet work truck, and I still think that I look at those 2 3/4 ton Fords we got, and they're the base model truck, and, I think they're probably the best trucks we bought in a long time, and dollar for dollar, you got what you got. As I said the last time, if it's got 4 wheels and engine and it's white in color, we're halfway there. There were a little bit too much detail. Tires, I'll mention tires right now. I know tires, fleet tires, OEM tires are poor tires, no doubt about it. They can get a cheaper tire, they're going to put it on and hope for the best. They're not going to come from a factory there, so the dealer's going to flip them. So just keep that in mind. It's just going to add to the price. The money's come from somewhere. In the end, you get what you pay for. However, sometimes as you go along, you can upgrade, and that's what you get. We have the trucks at the wastewater that have been here since they started in 2013, and they're still rolling, and they're pretty plain Janer trucks from what I see. I still like the fleet truck motto. I would have to use your better judgment, Jeff, in what the truck is going to be doing. If it's just going to be running the roads, it doesn't need a V8. If it needs to have power for loading purposes, then it needs the power, and then you specify that power. I think every truck you look at, you got to know its major use, and you got to tailor it that way. But just don't put the bells and whistles on it. That's what got you the last time. The opening back door, the window, and the power folding mirrors, like things that most people don't have, and we don't. For a fleet truck, they don't need to be there. So I don't know where we're going to go. Seems like we're going backwards here again. So I could live with this, with just using your judgment on engine sizes and stuff and any other necessary equipment. We'll go around again, and Jeff will have to come back. I kind of disagree with Councillor Mellon on the penalties. It's a challenge. You can't get trucks nowadays. In the old days, well, just how many trucks do you want, and you'll have them in 6 weeks. Now we don't know if 6 months we'll get trucks. So if you put it too tight a timeline, then you're not going to get a truck because people aren't going to bid on it. So I can't get you a truck. You know, simple as that. Maybe I'll be shocked, but things start moving. $100 a day is a pretty decent penalty in my opinion too. Yes, Jeff?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, just to add on to that, before you go around the table, the last truck tender, we had exactly 3 companies that bid on it. One from Western Ontario, one from Brockville, and the company in Castleman. Those were the only 3 companies that even took a tender out, and none of them were gonna, unless we waived the penalty fee, because they had no control in the market at that time on if vehicles were even gonna be available. They were hoping that they were, and it turned out that they weren't. So I'll just leave it with that.
Okay. Anyway, we'll go around the table again. I think in the end, you're going to probably have to bring this back, but go ahead, Council Mellon.
I still have a problem with when some car dealerships saying, oh, well, we have no control over it. If they pick the phone up, give me a price on your work truck, whatever truck they're tendering out. Give me a price on it. If they're giving a price, if they got a price and they're giving us a price in that tender document, they must know, and if they don't, there's something wrong with them when that truck would be delivered. Like, I mean, there's no way that they're gonna pick the phone up and say, can you get me this truck? Well, yeah, I can give you, that's the price of the truck, you know, and then they're not gonna ask when we can get it delivered because the tender document says they're, you know. And if they can't get the truck, they can't get the truck. I guess we're gonna have to make the decision, can we wait 6 months? Can we wait 8 months? I guess, you know, if we're getting along now, leave the 6 months in there, leave it till the 1st of April. I still have a problem with if somebody's giving us a price on a truck, they must know what that price is and they must know when that delivery will be made. And if they don't, you know, there's something wrong here. If we're gonna say, deliver the truck by the 1st of April and they're calling up GM or Chrysler Canada or whoever you want, or you know, Ford Canada and say, can you get me the truck by the 1st of April? And they say no. Well, why, you know, yeah, they're not gonna bid, but do we want them to bid? Because we're gonna sit there and say, oh yeah, we're gonna get a truck from whoever, and come the 1st of April, we can't get that truck. Sorry. And they walk away, and then we're right back here again. The only problem with leaving it a little bit open, and Mayor Byvells and members of council and Jeff, I can live with the basic unit, but I'm just thinking we're gonna have a lot of discrepancies, or not discrepancy, we're gonna have a lot of, you know, we could end up with quite a difference in trucks. And we can leave it up to Jeff's, if you will, expertise on what he needs as far as engines, rear end, transmissions, you know, because there could be a big difference in there. That puts a lot of emphasis on staff, a lot of pressure on staff. They're gonna accept this truck, you know. So, yeah, I could live with the basic fleet truck. I'm just afraid we're going to get a big variance in what trucks are going to be in the tender and what their price will be. And then somebody's going to have to make that decision. Do we want the one with the better tires? Do we want the one with the heavier rear end? Do we want the one with the, you know, better brakes? I don't know what they're, you know, right now, we don't know what we're getting other than a white truck. It's going to be 4-wheel drive. It's going to have a brake on, you know, a hitch on the back and a chrome bumper. So that's the only thing. But I mean, when the tender goes out like this, there could be a big variance in what we're going to be getting back from the dealerships on, you know, price and quality of vehicle. We don't need the Taj Mahal, we don't need a big screen TV in a truck, but we also need a motor that's going to get us from point A to B, and the tires are going to get us there. Plus the rear end and whatever we need to haul with this thing. So I can live with the fleet truck, but I'm just afraid that we're going to get into a lot of different opinions and different, you know, tenders and pricing. And if you want to waive that penalty, I think we're asking for trouble again, but anyways, I'm voiced my opinion, my concerns, and I can drive on, Mayor Byvells.
Council Lewis.
Well, I've drove around and looked at a few dealerships, and I think all the dealerships are in the same boat. They're not getting chips. They're not making chips. So if they're not making chips, you're not going to get. It don't matter if you're looking for a Ford, Chev, Dodge, Toyota, whatever. If they're not making chips, they're not making chips. You can't blame it on the dealership. You can't blame it on yourself. You put the tender out, and we hope for the best. As far as the penalty goes, we're in COVID. You can make it $50 a day, and I don't really think it's going to matter. If the companies aren't getting chips, the companies aren't getting chips. But I will agree with Councillor Mellon that I think when it goes to ordering a truck, you're going to have a mixed can of worms. It doesn't matter to me if they got automatic windows, roll-up windows, whatever. But I think certain things on those vehicles have to be specified, because here not very long ago we had a big issue on tires. And if you start getting trucks with cheap tires and they're blown apart at 10,000 kilometers, you're going to be back here, Jeff, and you're going to take heat. So I think we should specify what kind of tires that we need. I can live with just a plain Jane work truck, but we have to have certain things on them, and that's the way I feel. Like 29 years in the municipality as an employee. I don't think, the only time that I was ever questioned was on a four-wheel drive. Any other time, everything was all right. I honestly think it's up to you. You know what you need for a vehicle, and I can live with that. So, and that's all I have to say.
Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. I won't add too much to this pile other than to say that I believe this process was brought on by COVID. I think in regular years, I think you would have had multiple dealerships supply. They've got a white truck stuck in the back. They get rid of it. It's easy. The world is not as it was in this particular industry, especially. People have bought trucks and drive them off the lot, and then they're offered $10,000 more than what they paid for them on the lot. So I think that in my mind, we should go ahead with this, see what we get, knowing that the situation is not clear. The penalty, for me, any other time, absolute penalty. In these times, I think what's going to happen is people are going to see the penalty, know that there's no supply, and not bother bidding. So it's, I guess we can figure out how much time we want to waste on this, but in my mind, it is, if you talk to industry experts, they will tell you it's not like it normally is when purchasing any vehicle, let alone a work truck. So I think that's part of the problem. It'd be interesting to see in April what's going on, but yeah, that's all I have to say, Mayor.
Okay, Jeff. I'm not going to add much more. I think we're all throwing a lot of stuff at the wall. What's your thoughts right now from what you heard? And my thinking is we can either work with what you've got and adjust it a bit, or you can come back next week and go through this whole process again. But I think I really don't want to spend this much time on figuring out what kind of truck. I think council would like to see a decent truck that doesn't have any bells and whistles on it and has the power and the options you need to get things done for that specific role that truck will be in. Tires seem to be a high hit, and I understand why. However, it might be just as beneficial to take the tires you get and plan on spending new, but your thoughts?
So I'll bring up the original tender that I started with, and I'll go back to the line item idea, and I'll eliminate some of the lines that maybe don't apply, but, and I'll bring it back to you. And just so you can see it before, I'll change all the dates in it to make it reflect as if it was going to the street on when it should be going to the street. And you'll see the final product, and I'll get your blessing, and then we'll move forward again. So I'll bring it back.
Okay, suggestion, Jeff, you contact a few dealers to see what kind of timelines we'd be looking at ordering a truck if we did it today. They should have an idea. They can't probably promise you, but they might have an idea. Because they're obviously dealing with real customers that want the much fancier, dancier trucks than us and not getting any success. So, you know, at least they'll give us a timeline, and then we can determine if penalties are the right way to go or not.
So is April realistic, or should we move it to June?
Find out first before we go any further.
Okay. I'll make some phone calls.
Yep, okay, enough of that, thank you. Compost site, key information report update.
So I just wanted to bring this as a follow-up, and I can definitely leave it with council tonight, but what we're looking at doing is finishing off our compost season with 2 remaining weeks, one being October 27th, 29th, and 30th in Morrisburg, and then Iroquois November 3rd, 5th, and 6th. What I'm hoping to do is to get some direction from council for 2022, whether it's something council wants to look at doing, one depot day a month from May to October, or how we want to go about do the timelines next year so that we can get that out to our residents over the winter and have them plan accordingly. So I'll leave that up to council whether you want to come back again or have some discussion tonight.
I have some comments, but I'll start.
Just wondering where we were with the feedback. Because I know that the staff were asking questions.
Yeah,
and-
so, a lot of the residents want more than just what we're offering.
Yep.
They want more days. We do offer the landfill site as an option. I think it's a matter of what council is willing to provide. There's a cost associated with more days we have, the more money it's going to cost us. So I think the biggest one right now that we're getting from residents is they want more days.
Interesting. Okay, my thought actually is if there's any way we can do it so it's 2 days a week and just strategically keep the number of days but spread them out a little bit, and be more strategic. Our springs are incredibly hot. I know this year was a bit of a jump, and sometimes we do get a rainy cold spring, but they have been, as a mom of a school-age kid, I can tell you that in May and June, the kids are cracking out the shorts, generally speaking. So, I think when we talk about the composting, I think we now need to put in the other thing, what is it called? The Instapot of composting. We need to kind of add that to the discussion as well as an alternative. I don't think these 2 items are standalone, because I have had some feedback from Morrisburg residents especially, and some of them were using our old compost site for something more than just leaf and yard waste. So I think now we're providing another option. So I think it all needs to be kind of gelled together. I understand the more dates, but I was comfortable with the dates, just not the dates that we chose. I think if we're more strategic in the placement, I think we can status quo it, but I think we just need to make sure that it's spread out more and people recognize that it may be a Morrisburg Iroquois drive. Instead of lining those 2 up, maybe separating everything so there's more options, but the number of times stick at the number of times. I was comfortable with that. I just think we can work it better, in my thought, and maybe instead of 3 days, 2 days, so we add extra days throughout.
Okay.
Councilor Lewis?
I have to agree with the deputy mayor. I know people was looking for compost late April, early May. We didn't have anything. And over the last, 5-6 years, maybe longer, Nice weather seems to be coming a heck of a lot faster than what it used to. Either that or I'm getting old. You know, it's one of the two. But I also agree that instead of having it 3 days, maybe have it 2 days, 2 days here, 2 days there. I do like the idea of the one more in Iroquois and one more in Morrisburg in October, because I had 3 people ask me already again if the compost was going to be here in October, and I said check the website. But I agree with the deputy mayor 100% that it's working out good. It's just that we gotta see when we get, you know, stagger the days with the.
Okay.
And that's all I have to say. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilor Mellon.
Give them any dates they want. I'd add double, triple it, because this should be a user pay system, and as long as it's not gonna be a user pay system, they get to live with what they got, because it's costing the taxpayers money to, you know, give the accommodation to a few people that are gonna use this compost site. So as far as I'm concerned, I've always said that, this should be a user pay system. It's not a user pay system. So juggle your dates around, and if they want more dates, guess what? Maybe we should be doing what we're supposed to be doing and make it a user pay system. That's all my comments.
Can't disagree with you, Councilor Mellon. I think we started this process by trying to provide a service that we sort of had in Iroquois and really didn't have in Morrisburg. I think we provided some options to residents to have the ability to not have to drive to the landfill on specific days. I'm not willing to spend a penny more money on this, so you can do all the juggling you want. If it's more times that GFL has to come here with a dumpster, that's what your cost is. The 3 days aren't your cost, it's that drive back to Moose Creek. As of right now, we still have a place at the Matilda landfill site. We don't charge for it. It's a little farther drive. I understand that, but I'm willing to do what we did this year. I'm willing to juggle dates around to suit the seasons, but not spend any extra money than we have to on this system. So that's my opinion on that. We're catering to a specific clientele, and we should never do that in municipality. It has to be for everybody. And people from Dunbar are not going to drive to Morrisburg to put their stuff in the composter. It's not going to happen. So they'll probably go to the old site and throw it in the side ditch, but I mean, you got to look at how big we are, and we're catering. And I'm not all the way in Councilor Mellon's thinking, because we did have something before, but to add more, I'm not there yet. I think we need a thorough review before we go any further. We need people. The feedback's always going to be, we want more. The question back, which should be, well, if you want more, are you willing to pay for it? And because we can't, I don't think it's fair. So that's my 2 cents worth on that one. Anything further? Go ahead.
Sure. So I wasn't talking about adding more. And
Yeah, but if you juggle dates, you know what I mean? You're trying to get more weeks by taking days off, and it's the GFL run that's
Then
going to get you.
leave the 3 days, but we need to spread them out. Instead of having that competition between Morrisburg and Iroquois, we need to look at Iroquois will be, the 3 days will be for all of South Dundas. Morrisburg, when it's in Morrisburg, it's for all of South Dundas, instead of this village mentality, so you can get more times accessible, because most people will not have an issue, you know, with Iroquois or whatever. Like, I just think we can make it better. I think we can spread it out, we can make it, keep it within what we did, but just better dates. You know, because we have them all clumped. So I'll give you an example. So we've got October 27th, 29th in Morrisburg, right?
Yep.
When's the next Iroquois one after that? The week after?
Week after would be.
Exactly. So in my mind,
Yep.
you would spread it out more. So if we have the October, then you'd have well, maybe November's too late. So say you'd have one in September, at the beginning of September instead, in Iroquois, and then knowing 3 weeks later, the next one's in Morrisburg.
Okay.
That's why I'm talking about spreading it out.
So we'll put a schedule together for 2022. We'll bring it
Yeah.
back to council with
Yeah.
that in mind as far as spreading it
Yeah,
out. But still,
if the feedback is more,
Yeah.
then let's, because the gardeners that I heard from,
Yeah.
it's more about the growing, pruning season, and it's not an issue to drive to Iroquois or Morrisburg. It's just, you need, like, I've got another 4 bags in my garage. That's why I wrote down the dates in the calendar, to get rid of. So it's just a case of better utilizing what we did instead of clumping them all together, and then you don't have anything. Because right now we put 2 weeks together,
Yeah.
and then we don't have anything for 2 months. That's
it.
the majority of the issue.
Sounds reasonable. Councillor Lewis?
And that's more or less, I'm not about to spend any more money.
No.
I think what we spend now is plenty. But I have to agree with Deputy Mayor Gardner, it's just like, we gotta rearrange our schedule just a wee bit, let's tweak it. So if we're in Iroquois for 1 week, then 2-3 weeks later, let's come to Morrisburg. Let's not do a week there, then turn around the following week, come here, because I don't think it really matters to the people if they come to Morrisburg or if they drive to Iroquois. And I don't know why they have a problem going to them until the landfill site, but people's people. And
Anything further to add? Because I don't understand. I know where you're coming from, Councilor Mellon, I fully understand it. Okay, so you had enough feedback, we'll see what we can do for next year. Okay, Renegade Bass Tournament 2022.
thank you, Mayor and Council. So just wanted to bring this forward. I have been requested by the organizer of the Renegade Bass. They're looking at doing a weekend tournament here next year, the week of July 16th and 17th. So what they're looking for tonight is council's confirmation of that weekend, because they'd like to get the registrations all out to their members this fall. As council will recall, we do have a bylaw that does charge the voters. So similar to this year, they paid $10 per boat. There were 75 boats in the tournament day, so they paid $750 plus HST. This being a weekend, they would pay $15 plus HST per boat. They do provide insurance, and they do provide a rental agreement. So looking to see if council has any issue with the date, and we'll proceed from there.
That was the best news I've ever heard from Renegade Bass. They come to us and do things right. I give them a lot of kudos for doing that. If staff doesn't see any issue with that date, I don't have a problem, but
I don't know what's going on that day, but I'm good with it. They're willing to, that's,
that's good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The only thing I talked to our manager of Parks and Rec, so there might be Seaway Surge tournament or something that weekend, whatever, but we provide them with dedicated parking. So this year they use the Legion parking, also the arena, and the South Dundas Municipal parking, so.
So has Surge already said they need that weekend, or?
No, we
that's-
haven't. We're just
Okay,
assuming they might be.
Renegade Bass wins.
Yep.
Okay, they've caught this, I will give them a lot of credit for doing this,
Yep.
because I've been at this council table in the past way too many times, and some organization comes to council, we want it free 2 days before it. And that is not fair. This is good organization, and I, as I said, lots of credit for it, tons of credit for it. I think, they certainly bring a lot when they do come. So it's, and if they're here for 2 days,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a hotel establishment that's going to be real happy, because not all of them are going to drive home. So, and they need fuel, they need food. That 2-day thing really works well, and I think that's good for South Dundas. And I like the planning. I love the planning. King,
Yeah, I mean, first come, first serve, we have that on our calendar, when somebody's going to book, Surge is gonna, they know, okay, maybe that's not the best weekend for, so no, I agree with Mayor Bybels, they're stepping up to the plate and speaking to us. better than 2 days after the event and then looking for something back.
I didn't want to go down that road.
Okay, sorry.
Councilor Lewis?
I don't have a problem with that. I really don't think the problem was with the pro bass fishermen anyways. And, you know, they do good things for the community. I know last year when they were here, they were handing out rods and stuff like that to the kids. And it didn't cost the kids nothing. They enjoyed it. And the pro bass fishermen, they love coming here. The only thing that I would suggest is when they were here this summer, there was also a memorial at the Legion in somebody's name.
Okay.
And they took 95% of the parking lot. And the people that was going to pay their respects, they had nowhere to park. So what I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe we should contact the Legion just to make sure that they don't have a ceremony in somebody's name. What's that? Well, they could tell you at the Legion.
Okay.
But I think it runs good, and they don't crowd the dock area with the boats and trailers. And no, I have no issues with this.
Shannon?
I know in talking to them, the lady, she was saying is that what they used to do before, they used to have the big tents and stuff.
Yeah.
They've kind of gotten away from that. It's more of a smaller event center now, but they still get the same amount of boaters out every year. So
Yeah, well, this year they ran cycles.
yeah,
10 guys went, say, at 5:30. Another 10 boaters would go at 6 o'clock, and the same whenever their weigh-in time.
yep.
One boat would come in at 3:30 for weigh-in. The next one would be 4 o'clock. And it worked out pretty good. I was there to watch it, and yeah, it was impressive.
And no problem getting the money. They paid the
Oh,
fees
yeah,
right away.
no.
There was no issue whatsoever.
No comment. Go ahead.
I like the planning. I agree, Mayor Byvelds, that it's nice to get the heads up with this. I'm hoping that it gets out in the community. We're okay with the dates. Maybe businesses can put together packages, whether it's accommodation packages, and kind of get ahead of the game. That's how communities embrace stuff like this instead of just, oops, it's booked. So.
Just to echo that, the Renegade Bass did reach out to Cindy Alt-Peters too
Yeah.
from the chamber, so I think they're looking at doing something
Good.
from a chamber perspective, but they've got enough in advance that they can work
That's
on that
where
stuff.
we all benefit. That's where you see the businesses benefit
Yes.
when they have a heads up. They're welcoming. They've got that kind of mindset. So I'm thrilled. I love having this discussion way ahead of time, and I'm hoping our South Dundas businesses that can benefit from this will take it and run with it. So that's great.
Okay, I'm good. Dutch Meadows subdivision agreement.
Yeah, so we received a request from Ron Swank in regards to an amendment to our subdivision agreement. So under section, I believe it's 6 of our subdivision agreement, it indicated that there would be temporary permits allowed, which would include 3 homes and 1 condo. In talking to Ron Swank, there's been a shift in demand when it comes to not only single dwellings, but multi-res or semi-detached homes. So what he's looking for is if council would be amenable to replace the 3 residential and 1 condo, just to include 5 residential permits only, and that's it. It's a minor tweak, but I don't think it has any impact on the municipality. I don't know if the mayor wants to add anything.
No, I'm
that.
not going to add anything right
Okay.
now, but I think you've said it well enough.
Okay.
Ron did talk to me about it, so go ahead.
Sure.
It's just a temporary permits before,
Yeah.
so they're
I was
allowed.
just excited to see them built.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whatever the fastest route is to get something built there, I'm good with.
He was
We need the houses.
He was
so-
confident when I talked to him that 5, just putting 5 multi-res, that's just the minimum, right?
Yeah.
So that will allow him, so that we're not coming back all the time changing things up.
We need that in South
Yeah.
Dundas,
Yeah.
so whatever is going to make it
Yep.
happen, I'm good with.
No, I have no problem with this at all. I think everybody that sat here on council the night that we talked to Swanks Construction, we want to work with them. So no, I have no issues whatsoever. That's good.
Councilor Mellon?
No, they've got a better feel of what the market is asking for and what, what they need out there, so, yeah. Drive on.
Okay, so full disclosure, Ron is building me a shop at the farm right now, but irregardless of that, he did talk to me about wanting to do more, something different at Dutch Meadows. They've spent a lot of money there so far. It's not done yet. They're doing, from what I see, a fairly decent job of bringing housing to South Dundas. So if they need to have a little tweak, and I think it sounds reasonable to me. Okay, so if you need to bring it back, then
Yep.
do whatever, but I think you can probably let them go ahead, and then
Yes.
if you need to formalize it, then they can come to council at our next meeting.
Perfect.
Committee member appointments, there's a vacancy at the Iroquois Waterfront Committee, and they are forwarding their desire to have this member on board, so I'll ask the clerk to read the motion, please.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Mellon, that council approve the appointment of Stephen McDonald to the Iroquois Waterfront Committee.
Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all heard the motion, those in favor, approved. Opposed, if any, motion carries. Okay, municipal modernization intake 3.
Just a brief discussion with council in regards to, under the municipal modernization take 3, it is opened. Applications can be submitted up to October 19th. We've been in discussions with South Stormont and South Glengarry in regards to a joint application to look at our water and wastewater systems, to look at any operating efficiencies, the organization of the facilities, to see if there's some cost savings or collaboration that can be done amongst the 3 municipalities. In talking to South Glengarry and South Stormont, their municipalities are on board to do that application, and I'm looking to see if it's something that council wants to explore moving forward. We're not guaranteed the funding, but it'd be a 3-way joint application, which the province and feds really seem to look at those joint submissions. The other thing I will note is that under intake 2, we did get approval for the water rate study as well as the 20-year projection. So if we did get this funding and council was on board, we would basically encapsulate everything in regards to water and wastewater that would be funded by the provincial government. So just looking for any comments from council.
Councilor Mellon?
Wow. I don't know. Do we need it? I'm like, we got fairly updated new facilities. I don't know what South Stormont, South Glengarry.
So part of it will look to see if there's any cost savings that can be made as far as bulk purchasing, or maybe it's a staff that we can share amongst 3 of us for better efficiency. So it's more looking at the whole entire operations to see, is there opportunities where we can save money, possibly to reduce user fees, or is there other ways that we can look at managing financing better?
Does it cover the whole, whatever we want? Like, is there any input from finances from us that would go into this, or would it all be covered under the?
Yeah, so we would drop the RFP with the other 2 municipalities, and definitely would come back to council for any input if you want to add something else into that. Definitely, it's an option. But I think, if I look at, we went through our water and sewer budget, there's a lot of thought about, because it's a user pay system, right? We want to make sure that what we're charging our users that we're making sure that we're being financially constrained as far as what we're spending. So this looks at the whole entire operations, and I don't think it's a bad thing sometime to look at it and make sure that we're spending what we need to spend, and if there's any savings, it's paid back to the users.
This intake 3, that is there anything else? I mean, this is our option, this is what we can use it for?
Well, we can use it for, it's supposed to be for any review. So I said we applied under intake 1 for, what did we apply under intake 1? It's not coming to, intake 2 was a water rate review
Yeah.
as well as our 20-year projection. This is just another opportunity that South Stormont actually reached out to us first to see if we would be interested in looking at a partnership. Said it's not a guaranteed thing. If we were successful, the contribution would be roughly about $10,000 from each municipality.
From each?
Yeah, which I think is low in what we're going to be getting.
That's all for now.
Council Lewis.
I don't see an issue with this. Sometimes it might be good to go as a group instead of trying to figure it out by yourself. Yeah, no, I'd help, or I'd go.
Deputy Mayor.
I'm okay with this. I think as long as the focus is specific on efficiencies
Yep.
and saving money.
Yep.
I think if they come back and say we need to hire like 3 more
Yeah.
operators, I might levitate off the desk. But efficiencies are good. Buying is good. Resources, especially as the technology improves, you're always going to have that race about finding the efficiencies and using the increased better technology in a better way. So no, I'm okay with it. I think the metrics of this though is I don't want to just see it as efficiencies in operation from the municipal standpoint. I'd really like to see cost efficiencies for our residents.
Yep.
So if we can focus on a way that somebody that's turning on their tap right now on 5th Street is able to see that this process went through and they are saving a little bit of money, I think that's vitally important. So we can't be selfish. It can't always be our efficiencies. It also needs to be for the residents. So
Great.
that would be my only comment, or some of the comments.
So, refresh me again, because I was a little looking ahead here.
Okay.
So you want to work with South Stormont and South Glengarry and looking at efficiency in our water and wastewater systems?
Correct.
So South Stormont needs a new Ingleside wastewater treatment plant, and South Glengarry needs everything in Glen Walter. So I think I kind of agree with Councillor Mellon. Like I don't think we're going to get as much out of it as you think. I don't know. I'd like to see us think somewhere else on this one.
Okay.
I don't mind working together. I love working together. But I don't see where we're going to gain as much as we could. I think if there's no other opportunity, fair enough. But there's got to be something we can work on as that looks at the overall needs of South Dundas, because we're only looking at the water and wastewater, and no disrespect to those, but we spend a lot of time at this council table on that specific group and not looking at the big picture, and I think we need to make sure we always look at the big picture, one way or the other. And I think I don't think we're equals between South Dundas, South Stormont, and South Glengarry. I wouldn't mind, working with North Dundas makes a bit more sense if we wanted to keep on going down the road of integrating water systems, because that would help a lot of users. But I think there's other places we can do it, and it's not really on me to figure that out. You guys know what you need, and there's got to be something that works better. I can think of a lot of things that make much more sense in the big scheme of things, but I'd be shot down pretty hard, so I just got to keep my mouth shut on all that. So,
Nope. We can definitely look at other options as far
I think as an only option,
applications.
I'm not tickled pink. Go ahead.
You make some good points, and Mayor Byvelds, I tend to agree. If we are the ones that have our act together, it's more beneficial, it would appear. you'd have to put it so broad that it would get watered down, I think. Can we not, when we're talking about modernization, have we explored our garbage issue? Because we're talking about service delivery in a modern way. We've had this discussion for 3 years. And rolling it all out, composting, like you know what I mean? Like, is there room in that? I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know if that would be, but the way that we, when we talk about potential transfer stations and stuff, we're modernizing it. I mean, burying garbage is the most archaic thing you can possibly do. Is there something that we maybe could help us with that?
I can top your archaic, because I picked up 2 big bags on Garlow Road last week, because that's what other people do now. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
just dump it. But is there an option there maybe to help us with that conversation? That might be.
Yeah, there's service integration, shared services, alternate service delivery models.
Because we're talking about potentially reaching out to like the big ones with the transfer station, right? We're modernizing that whole concept. Maybe that could be a way to get some funding to help us with that conversation instead of a big bill from other people.
Yeah, I think you gotta look a little broader than that. I think go back to the drawing table. If you come back with that and it's the only thing that really fits, and fair enough, but I think we're missing something here. I think that's my opinion on it. Councilor Mellon?
I gotta agree. I mean, and like I said before, our systems are all pretty new, and I agree with you, Mayor Byvells. I don't think we're gonna get a lot of bang for our buck out of this whole thing. And what Deputy Mayor Gardner brings up a good point. We got the committee of the whole meeting, we don't even need to bring, because you send us to show us what, options we have. And like you say, maybe this is the best thing, but, maybe it's like our garbage, I don't know. I just don't think we're gonna get a lot of bang for our buck with it. So, show us what else it could be used for, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay, back to the drawing board, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Okay, Airco Waterfront Committee minutes. I assume that all council have read them since I pulled it.
Yeah.
There was a significant debate over benches. Now, I will admit, this is mainly driven by the chair. So their direction right now is to place memorial benches along the waterfront pathways. They've already put down the bases. The concrete bases are all poured. So their thinking is that people will want to memorialize somebody on these benches. Not a bad idea. I'm not saying this is a bad idea. However, the chair disagrees with most of our municipal memorial bench policy that this council passed this spring, which is fairly specific. And we were looking at a fairly uniform bench across South Dundas. The bench that the chair is located and the group wants to keep going with is more money. It's almost $1,000 more money. He claims it'll last 50 years. So one of the challenges he has is that our bench policy right now is only for 10 years, and after 10 years, that memorial bench would go back in inventory, sort of thing. They want longer. I didn't have a problem with longer, and I did mention 20 years. However, we do a lot of circle turning, and within our policy says the person has to pay for the whole bench, but it also has specific numbers, and I think that's where we fail, because we've priced out a bench. Our specific bench is $2,000, $2,076. And then he goes on about the donation policy, and I don't even want to go down that road because I think that would be just more challenging. I believe that we should kind of stick with the basic premise of our memorial bench policy going forward. If they want to customize it somewhat, that's not a bad idea, but to go way out the limits and you know, the chair has got this all figured out on a cost recovery, and it's gonna, you know, he makes it fairly complicated. If somebody wants a bench, it's gonna cost them $2,800 plus HST. We'll give it to you for 20 years, that's it. I don't think that's a hard thing to sell, and they've already got a lot of this stuff, like they're way ahead of the game on solicitation. So I think from my perspective, I think we have to use our policy to the best of our ability. We can stretch it a bit on some of the asks, but within it per se, unless council thinks we should have another review, that we stick to the policy and maybe possibly tweak the time limit on more expensive benches if the committee feels that that's what they should do. I don't know, you've read the minutes, go ahead.
When I read it, I thought a little bit about what you want when you have memorial benches. And the whole intent, generally speaking, is you're creating this area of reflection where people that aren't from here get a taste of who the bench is representing, and you just kind of do that. So I went back to my most favorite place in the world, Algonquin Provincial Park. They have benches everywhere memorializing different people. They do have a standard. All the benches are the same. Obviously, the newer benches look better than the older benches. And the name on the wording on the plaques just does differ. They decided not to get super specific and say it has to be a name with a date. You know what I mean? Like, you can have a name. One of my most favorite benches is they have the person's name and they say, he really loved this place. And when we talk about visitors or even family members that are left and they're looking around and they're trying, we need to see what we're achieving. I saw a lot of notes about prices and about all that stuff. We found out through the pandemic, these prices can change. If the price of steel or the price of wood or the price, those variables are always going to be. So for me, the specifications around what the bench should look like, I think are important. I think the getting hung up on the price is maybe not necessary. A bench is going to cost what it's going to cost, and if the family wants to provide the bench, it's going to be market value at the time. I would like some flexibility if, you know, we have parks in South Dundas, so we also have to think about this. We're looking at these benches through a certain demographic. And what if you had a family that wanted to purchase a bench for a young child that had passed away? Should we have the flexibility to maybe have a more, lack of a better word, like playful or more youthful looking bench? So for me, I found this really caught up in numbers and specifics. I think that we should have a standard bench. I think we should have some flexibility. But I think the core, you know, I think it should be a memorial bench. I'm not comfortable getting into this recognizing people that are still around. I find that super awkward, that people are sitting on the, you know, Kirsten Gardner bench. That's just weird. Like, you know, I don't like that. That's me. And there's a reason why I couldn't find any benches that weren't memorial. The person had passed. Generally speaking, if you want your name on something, you're still walking around, you're going to give a lot of money and put it on a building. Benches are meant for the family in a peaceful setting. It's a park-like setting. So I don't know if I'm adding anything to your comments, but I think we're really hung up on the price. We just need the specifications. The price is going to change. Putting in an absolute price whenever you could go to the supplier and they say, sorry, cost of whatever is up, it's $1,000 more, then what do we do? I think the specifications, I would like to see some flexibility just for if somebody wants to recognize a child or something like that, and the bench would maybe look different. But, and I do absolutely, in my mind, want it to be a memorial bench, and I'm okay with the 25 or 20-year longevity of it. I think you'd find in most cases 20 years, people that were around may not remember the person in the same way, so they might not have that attachment. I think 10 might be too short. If I was purchasing a bench for my husband, once I'm gone, once the kids are older, it's different, and then it's okay to let other people, memorialize their loved ones. So I think I'm looking at this as the community. I'm looking forward to seeing these benches around and the community members that have passed that made an impact. It's pretty neat. If you ever get a chance, walk through Algonquin Park at the Logging Museum. There's probably about 20 of them. They're kind of neat. But yeah, I don't like this hung up on prices because that's going to change. It's a lot of work on something that can change in a week.
If I'm not mistaken, we spent a lot of time on the park bench policy. We make policies to have policies to enforce policies. Yes, we can tweak the number of years, which it doesn't matter to me if it's 10 years, 20 years, 25, 30, whatever. But I also agree with Deputy Mayor Gardner. Memorial bench is a memorial bench that somebody has passed, not still walking on the earth. Like that's freaky. But no, I don't mind tweaking for the amount of years, but we have a policy and I'm not about to change it. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Councilor
The idea of the bench policy, I think, came in, so that we have some uniformity across, especially, where there could be a lot of benches, and I think that's imperative that we keep that. I don't think we want all sorts of different styles and colors of benches and whatever, so I stick with our policy. Cost recovery, like Gardner has said, price could be up, down, whatever it costs for that bench, and only for a commemorative bench, I have no problem extending it out 20 years, it's fine.
Okay. So it would be fair to say that council is, notwithstanding what they are asking for in the minutes, we still want to do memorial benches only, no commemorative benches. Price is the price, so if they get fancier benches, then, the math is what the math is. A longer term would be more appropriate. As much as the chair says they're going to last 50 years, 50 years is a long time for anything in this day and age. Yeah. So I would go to 20 and then, it can always be revisited at that time, but 20 years is a long time. Ours says 10 right now.
Yeah.
I did stress uniformity of benches when we went down this road, but the chair had already brought in a bench and it was basically installed pretty quickly. So it's one of those challenges we have in our area, that some people like doing things on their own, and if they pay for it, then I guess they can do what they want. But that was a challenge that night, and it's actually still there. It may be on a concrete pedestal by now. So anyway, I got that information. I can bring it back to the committee. We meet this Thursday night, and I'll see what they say, and we'll go from there. Yes?
I would also like they do talk about the plaque on the bench.
Yes.
I think it's important to allow the family. One of the things I liked is it's nice to have a little bit of personal touch to it. Mm-hmm. If you just have the name and the dates or whatever, it's nice to have, I could picture somebody saying, love watching the ships go by, or walked their companion Muffy, I don't know. I think that personalizes it a bit. I think that's important as well, to not condense the wording, like to allow people, obviously somebody's going to have to vet it. You can't put
we have that
nasty,
right.
Yeah, nasty messaging. But again, my comments, it's the same way if we plant a memorial tree, right? Trees change depending on what the tree you're going to get or whatever, the price. There's one other thought I had in this. I just forgot it. But anyway, that's I support, like I said, most of it. Oh, there was one thing I was going to say. The public needs to understand, I myself, if I look at our bylaws, absolutely, as far as a communication document, the intent of a bylaw is a bylaw. they're not meant to be this sparkly communicative thing. I think people need to understand that the municipality and us as council work under bylaws. So I read in here that yes, I can take any bylaw and make it sound special and connect it and communicate with the thing. I think people need to understand a bylaw is how we operate. Things, motions, that type of thing are passed by bylaws. So that was my only other comment, was the fact that unfair to say that we're living under these bylaws and how it's a very, legalized document and not very explanative, and you could, condense it or whatever, but that's how we operate. So there's not much we can do about that. I'd love to have flowery little little documents attached to all our stuff. I'd love to do the one about the truck tender. That would be fun, but
We do work in a world of policies and bylaws, and I understand that. Every once in a while, they can be tweaked at council's discretion, and only council's discretion, not committee's discretion. That they would have to come back to us and ask, and that's what we're doing tonight. Some people challenge our policies after the fact and think they know better, and that's fair enough. If they have good ideas, I never discredit good ideas, but to dump ours in the waste bin right away and say it's not worth the paper it's written on is kind of disrespect what we've already done. I don't think that's fair either. So anyway, I will bring back that, we're working within the policy, and as I said, and I don't, people are allowed to put what message they want. I discourage pictures. That kind of can be a little creepy, but sayings and stuff like that certainly make sense. We as a municipality still get to be able to make sure that they fit within the purview of the municipality, no doubt about that, but it seems like there's a flavor putting on, if you're gonna spend $3,000 on a bench, then you'd want more than 10 years out of it, that's for sure, so. Okay, I needed to get that across because they will be meeting this Thursday night, and I'm sure it'll be another 2-hour discussion. Thank you for that. Okay, so we had an ask tonight, kind of came over the weekend and got formalized today. That the South Dundas, Historical Society of South Dundas is having a partnership with the Iroquois Waterfront Committee to do an event on our waterfront, specifically Iroquois, concerning the new signs that the Iroquois Committee have placed up. And they're also going to be touring some of the new builds down at the waterfront. So before we go any further, the date's Sunday, October 24th. They were looking to use the campground building, but I understand it may be closed by then. So from staff point of view, and Austin's not here, so you're going to have to carry the load tonight, and David, because they're the ones that actually look after, well, David looks after facilities, but Austin along with him on the rec side.
So right now we are scheduling to winterize our buildings. I'm not saying that by October 24th we would be through all those buildings. So if council wishes to have the bathrooms and everything open for that day, we'll have to deal with COVID protocol. Either a staff member or commissionaires or somebody would have to be there to do all the screening and stuff. So actually, I just got a text from our manager of facilities. He says it will be opened if need be. So.
Okay. So from a COVID screening point of view, I know that the chair of the Waterfront Committee did mention that it could come out of their budget. Now, he hasn't had that approved at a committee meeting either, so I have a challenge with that. He needs to get that approved on Thursday night. To be honest, he has to get the whole day approved on Thursday night yet, and I want to make sure that they approve it too, because it kind of was flung on us on Friday that this whole thing was happening, and I kind of made it a little bit more formal today once I pushed a few buttons.
I think if council wants to have it on the 24th and would like the commissioners, if we can know sooner than later so that we can schedule with them as far as the timelines, we can get that moving forward.
Okay. Council Mellon? I know you don't like last minute things, but there's nothing I can do about this. This is,
Did they ask for the use of the campground building?
yes.
They did, okay.
Well, yeah, so they would use the meeting room area, plus, I guess if the washrooms are available and operational, they'd use it, have them at least available, or else nobody would have anything available then.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Use it, I mean, for the cost of staff or somebody to be there for an hour or two, or in the building to check credentials and, proper vaccine
Yeah.
certificates and whatnot. Yeah, okay, it's just, yeah, lots of stuff is nice, but anyway, yeah, okay, I can live with them having the building, using the building for that day, for a couple hours or whatever they need it for. Probably wouldn't be any more than 2 hours.
I wouldn't think.
Everybody will say, but,
Yeah, I think it's 2 hours, 2 to 4. Council Lewis?
I'm like Councillor Mellon. I hate these last minute decisions. It most likely could have been handed to council the last council meeting. And we are going to ask the commissioners to be there. I don't think it would be proper to have one of our employees check and.
No, so we'll definitely, David said that he hasn't sent the October schedule to commissioners yet, so if that's included in that, we can add that in there as part of our schedule.
I
from 2
think
to
it should
4
be
on Sunday.
the commissioners, myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not overly impressed with the last minute thing, but yeah, sure.
I'm also not a fan of last minute, only because if all of us have busy lives and then we can't attend, it looks like we're not supporting it, so it feels like a bit of a setup on 2 weeks' notice. I'm okay with it. However, I continue to think that if we're going to pay commissioners to be there, when we discuss at budget time our funding requests and that type of thing, we are supporting these items. I think a tally needs to be kept hand, because I'm pretty sure the commissioners aren't doing it for free. I think that's important to show the fact that this municipal council and our municipality will partner with folks, but there is a cost, and we're willing to do that, and that should be recognized as support. I'm okay with it. I think not only the short notice for the council, but also short notice with COVID. I'm wondering how, staff are going to have to spend some time figuring out how the flow of traffic is going to occur in that building, out of that building. Usually it's an exit out.
It's one way in, one way
Yeah,
out.
and you
Yep.
always have to have somebody monitoring that, because there's people that won't follow the arrows. I just would hate anyone to get sick if, for whatever reason.
Yeah, if it's a nice day, we can have them go in the north door, out the
Yeah.
south door, and keep the front,
Yeah, if it's
the
raining.
east doors open
Yeah.
for air, and
Yeah.
it should be okay. That's not a concern if
Okay.
everybody's checked for their vax certificate before they
vaccine.
walk in.
Yeah. the
We can
vac-
make it work.
Okay, vaccine status. So, yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. I just wish, I wish that the organizations would recognize how important we view partnering with our community members, and how a short notice is almost feels like they don't want us there. So I think that's, you know, I ran because I wanted to build on partnerships and community and all those good things, and sometimes it's more difficult than it needs to be. So that's all I'll say.
Yeah, and I agree, you know, I'm not trying to stand in the road, and I'm sure they thought I was trying to stand in the road this morning, but, there's things that have to be done right. They are a separate entity, so their insurance has to cover whatever their insurance is gonna cover. And, you know, if we need it, then they need to know that too. So, I think it was a new member there not knowing, the proper protocols, and that's okay. He's been enlightened now, and hopefully we can work better in the future, but I don't see any issue today if everything at staff level is okay. Do we need a motion or anything, Madam Clerk? You're good with everything we discussed by
That's fine.
resolution? Okay. No, any notices of motion?
No, sir.
Ratification bylaw, please.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Lewis, that bylaw number 2021-104, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
All heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Before I read the next motion, I'd like to thank council for their work tonight. I'd like to thank all staff for those here and those afar for all their work and input. And I'd like to thank the audience for participating in democracy in South Dundas. German motion, please.
Moved by Councillor Mallon, second by Councillor Lewis, that council now adjourn to meet again at the call of the chair.
All heard the motion, those in favor, opposed if any, motion carries. Thank you very much.